to connecting with us Iowans and sharing some of their strategies today in our webinar. One of the things that came out of the evaluation information was that a lot of folks just had some questions around really supporting their job developers or their job development teams and ideas, strategies, suggestions for doing that. So we thought that our in-between in-person sessions, that it would be great, and Karen was willing to give us some additional time to have that as a topic for our webinar discussion. So thank you, Karen, for your willingness to do this.
You'll have to mute yours.
And I can mute me, and we'll turn it over to you, Karen. And then I think, Des, you might have mentioned this, but if folks have questions, feel free to raise their hand or type something in the chat box, and we can make sure that those get addressed as we go. So, Karen, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Hey, everyone. I realized that I was just looking at, some people have their name in there and some people are just a phone number, probably your office if you're on a shared line. And so I don't know. Some of you I've met before and others maybe might be fresh if you're joining a colleague. But I'm happy to be back with you guys, and just a couple technical things. If you did see me present before, you know I'm like pretty low-key and I love interaction, and so webinars aren't always the most conducive for that, but the best way that we can use it for today is if you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a chat box, and Deb Davis has already demonstrated its use. She says there's no rain in Emmitsburg. So anyway, feel free if you have a question or if I didn't explain something or you want to pipe in with a way that your team has done something similar or used this tool or whatever, please jump in, right? So consider it interactive as much as we can in our cyber ways. So I guess first of all, I'll know that you guys are all really quiet right now, but I'll know if everything drops out, it's because your tornado did definitely hit. And anyway, I hear there's lots of rain in different parts of Iowa, so I hope you guys are okay. And I'm glad I learned about the shelters when we were at camp. Okay, so I'm going to get started unless there are any questions that want to pipe up now, or if the Iowa team, do you guys have anything else you need to add?
This is Jess, and I just want everybody to know that you'll have to mute yourself, so just while Karen's chatting, do me a favor and just mute your line, pressing *# or the mute feature on your phone, just so we minimize any interference in the meantime. And we're also recording. So we'll capture everything today, and we'll be sure to send that out afterwards.
Okay, so first, since we are all cyber connected, I thought I'd try to reconnect us, and this picture will look familiar to those of you who gathered, and I was trying to remember the month. Was it April? I don't remember exactly. But anyway, here we are around the campfire, and if you're not in this picture or you don't recognize anyone in this picture, just imagine that you're shoulder to shoulder with me and we're looking in on this scene. And this was, I think this is how things really happen. And so as far as the first recruit, train, and retain, this is how, you know, we make connections and refuel ourselves and get new ideas. So instead of staring at your screen, you can look at this for a little bit. So like Amy was saying, I have put together basically an outline of some of the key things that we did at Trillium that really helped us to strengthen our job development outcomes. And as you know, when you have a team of staff who primarily come to this work because they really want to change the community and how the community sees people with developmental disabilities, they really are social workers. And really, job development has a lot of sales elements. And so to some degree, we have to retool ourselves and add to our skill set. And it can be hard, both in terms of getting staff the right tools, but also shifting how we manage them. So my hope here is that I'll go through some of the things that we did, and then some of them you may already be doing, and some of them might be fresh or easy to just integrate, no problem. And then the other piece is, I know there's some really stellar things happening with your job developers out there. So as we go along, like I said, use the chat box in the upper right hand, and it's not interrupting, it's just adding to the conversation. So go ahead and use that. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is words, and words actually do matter. You know, we've evolved over time and changed some of our language. You know, that's a lot of it's jargon. But one of the things we have to think about is our target audience, and that's the business community. And so when we're thinking about that, we have to think about the language we use. And Trillium, we really shifted our marketing language from being pretty much social service-y syrup, I call it, to really thinking about how are we presenting what we're doing in a way that matters to businesses. So what are we saying and how are we presenting ourselves that's going to be important to a business, not just important to us in terms of empowering people with disabilities and getting them into the workforce. So for us, it was shifting some of what I was saying of coming from the perspective of being a social worker, which is often lumped into this industry of helping professions, and I really hate that term, but I know from an outside that's what people think we are. So anyway, so in helping professions, what we would say is, you know, hey, I'm Karen Williams. I'd walk into a business and I'd say, we help people with disabilities find jobs. Can I talk to you about hiring one of my folks? And immediately the person who I was chatting with, you know, at the front desk or the manager or whatever, I've now sort of put them with this very narrow conversation, which they can either say something like, sorry, I don't have time, or no would be one answer. Or we get into this awkward thing that evolves, and now they're just doing it out of, you know, obligation to continue a conversation. And so even though it's true we help people with disabilities find jobs, that's not how a business wants, that's not what matters to a business. What matters to a business is the resource we're providing for them. And so what happened is when we were using this language, what we ended up getting was a lot of what I call charity hires, meaning the people that would be positively responsive to this kind of job development strategy, this kind of language, they would be saying yes because they think it's a cool thing, and they do want to have an integrated workforce, and they do want people with disabilities on their team. But sometimes people would just be doing it because they didn't know how to say no, and they didn't want to get in trouble with like a disability discrimination or something like that. And so really, they weren't strong hires. They were what I call charity hires. So then we switched our language to think, okay, well, how can we be a little bit more business resource? So we switched our language to think more about what we're offering to the business community. What are we offering to companies? Well, we're providing recruiting and training services so companies can successfully integrate people with disabilities into their workforce. And what I'm here to do is learn about ABC industries and see if, hey, we might be able to help you reach some of your goals, just like we have done for 250 other businesses. So now I'm talking to a business in terms of what matters to them. I'm talking to them about their goals, what they want, and if maybe I have something to offer them that will help their business. So it's a simple shift. You're really flipping it around to say, what are you about and what do you need? Maybe I have something for you, right? Versus walking in the door asking for something from them. So you're really learning about their business and starting that conversation in terms of what matters to them first, and seeing if you have what will be a benefit for them. So it might seem just like semantics, like you're switching it from, hey, we help people with disabilities find jobs, to, hey, we help businesses hire people with disabilities. But that switch is actually quite critical because it it helps your audience know that they're the ones you're there for. Otherwise, if you walk in there and you're still talking about someone's disability and they don't know how that fits in, then you're kind of going to miss a lot of conversations. So by switching our language and thinking about the words we're using when we're talking to a business, we actually were able to position ourselves as being a valued service. And businesses were much more likely to start a conversation and hear about this way that we help them source talent and get people to fit into their teams and to fill niche labor positions. So some of you might already be doing that, but I'll be honest, we still have a lot of staff on our teams that, I'll go out job developing with them, and you still hear them say, hey, I work for Trillium, and we're a nonprofit, and we help people with disabilities find jobs. And it's true, but it doesn't open a conversation with the business, because now they think you're just going to be there to ask for something, right? And we want to make sure that we're empowering the people that we're job searching for by making them, by positioning them as a value add, not as like something we're hoping they'll accept. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so the next piece is about getting the right tools for our staff. So like I said, we're lucky in that this job, you wear lots of different hats, right? So you can be passionate and into the civil rights movement for people with disabilities and interested in community and how we are inclusive. But in order for us to really be effective, we have to be able to sell this concept, and we have to be able to have skills to do that and to meet with the business community. And so for a long time, and I'm sure you've done this too, I would go to trainings done by social workers on how to do job development. So it was social workers training social workers to sell. And we were doing the best we could, but I don't know that that was really that effective. And then maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, Trillium's executive director, Trish Borden, partnered with Val Morgan, who was not at the time connected to our industry. And her job, she sells Auto Market, which is in Washington State. It's like our local Auto Trader, or the magazine where car dealerships post pictures of cars, and so completely unrelated, right? But she is like dynamo salesperson, right? I mean, she's in an industry that's all about numbers. It's not about people. And so she brought her sales skills, and Trish Borden combined her knowledge of job development and supported employment, and they came up with a curriculum for employment consultants or employment specialists, whatever you call your staff, to enhance job development techniques. And really, it's like sales 101 for social workers. It's brilliant. And the thing that happened for us at Trillium is that within that year of getting all our staff trained in this, our job development outcomes increased by, let's see, we went from like 58 to 114 jobs in 1 year. So it was really, really powerful. And I think it wasn't so much that people changed their entire style. It's that they had the skills to move things forward. So they could move from getting a conversation with a manager to then going and getting a tour to then actually getting a job, rather than, hey, I've just been meeting with this person for 5 years hoping that they'll hire, or only getting jobs that were familiar, like the lobby attendant and the courtesy clerk and things like that. They were able to have conversations with businesses that were unfamiliar and were probably intimidating, like law firms and biotech companies, and they were able to move things forward because of this training. So that might seem like, well, how are we going to get this? We'll never get it. Well, lucky for you, Iowa has already done at least one training. Maybe some of you already went through Val's training, but it is saved on the website, on the Iowa Employment First website. And I just want to show you, because sometimes when people tell you that something's on a website, it can be kind of intimidating. So I'm going to click over here and show you where you can find that. So your screen's going blank, don't worry, here it comes. Okay, so do you guys see the Iowa Employment First website? Hopefully. And now I don't have your comment boxes, so I'm just going to go blind on this, and then when I get back to the main screen, I can see if you have questions. So this website is available to you. It has lots of resources, and I'll share this PowerPoint so you can always go back to find the links. But basically, we're in the webinar series, and if you ever get to this and you don't know, see over here in the left-hand corner this resource archive. That's where you'll get all kinds of webinars. And then you would just scroll down, and I think it was September 2014. So, right, here we go. So here they are. And it's a two-part series, and I recommend that you have your staff go through this training because it's a really hands-on and really just a very well designed for our staff in terms of getting them sales training. So
Karen,
now you know where that is.
I'm sorry, this is Amy. Just so folks know, they can find the Employment First website by going to Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services webpage, and on the left side there'll be an option in the list of tabs on the left for Employment First, and that's how you get to kind of where Karen was going. Right now they house the vocational rehab site houses the Employment First site.
Great, yeah, thanks, Amy. And that, you guys, that's also in the slide too. It says it there, housed in the VR site, and it has the VR website up there too. Okay, so just out of curiosity, if anyone wants to comment, has anyone gone through this training or did that webinar? You guys can type in. I'll wait for those responses. But anyway, that is a huge tool. I would say that one of the things that happened to us, and you know, I always like to talk about someone trying to mute. There we go. All right. Or is that a tornado warning? I don't know.
No.
Okay.
I muted and unmuted the person, but I think that is feedback from speakers.
Okay.
712, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but I think it was just computer speakers along with the phone, possibly.
Okay. So yeah, if you guys want to comment or anything, you can always use the chat box in the upper right-hand corner and send a message if that's easier than trying to figure out unmuting and background feedback. So anyway, I was saying that, you know, if you know me or you met me before, you know that I like to, you know, confess mistakes and, you know, explain what went wrong because I think that's how we learn best. So one of the things is we went and we got all our staff, you know, pretty well trained on this training, and it was really awesome, and they were doing all these really great strategies, but we didn't really think about our managers, right? And so here it is, a whole team with this, like, really impressive new skill set that was somewhat foreign to the managers. I mean, they also went through the training, but we sort of put the cart before the horse in a way because then our managers didn't know how to manage to this new skill set. Does that make sense? So the staff had learned these new techniques of sales, and I think some of the managers felt a little bit intimidated because maybe that wasn't their background. Maybe they were more of a program manager, sales, you know, direct staff person. So, I mean, not sales, sorry, service. And so one of my guide to you is if you are a manager or you're going to be supporting managers who will lead a team of job developers, is making sure that the managers feel comfortable with the material. And, you know, it might be that you get managers together to talk about different strategies for how you manage these job development activities, right? How do you make sure that they're making progress? How do you coach them if they're stuck? And it doesn't mean that the managers have to be an expert in this content or be an expert in job development. It's just that they feel comfortable managing that, right? And it was just something that I feel like we had a lapse, and we didn't necessarily teach and give the managers enough support. But once we realized they were all kind of secretly feeling this, like, oh my gosh, my staff know way more about this than me, then it was like, okay, that's great that they know more about it than you because they're the ones that are out there doing it. So let's just make sure that the managers then got together and had a place to talk about, well, how do you manage when a staff isn't doing follow-up with a business? Or how do you manage when one of your staff just can't seem to get a job ever? How are you telling them like to try different tricks? And what happened really, and I'll talk about this more, is that the managers learned to rely on really good job developers on their team to help coach those other staff. So there are ways around it, but just make sure to either support yourself as a manager or support managers that might be overseeing a job development team so that they feel comfortable and confident managing, even if this is their area of expertise, right? So happy to entertain questions or comments about that too. Anyway, that was my advice from our lesson learned. Okay, so next here we're going to move on to testimonies. So one of the things that we were not very good about using was here we had years and decades actually of providing this service to businesses, but we weren't using any statements or using them as a referral base. And so what we ended up doing was, here we are, a social service agency trying to convince a business that we have a business solution. And it's like, well, maybe there's a different way to do this. And if you think about Yelp or any of the review services out there, or if you think about how businesses do business, they do business with people that they know and trust. So we needed to create a bank of statements that were testimonials from current employers about the services we provided. So these testimonials, it's like 1 or 2 lines, and we can use these testimonials on our website, in our social media outreach. We can put them in our printed materials. Staff can pull a particular one and use it in an email that they're sending. So I have on here that you can use it geographically or industry related. So for example, if a staff is trying to develop a job with a vet clinic and they want to have, a testimony from a business talking about Trillium services, then they might look for another testimony from a vet. Well, say we don't have any other quotes from a vet clinic, then maybe they find one from a ranch, a horse ranch, or maybe they find one from a dog daycare service or a boarding house. And so they can then use that as something that's in a related industry. And who knows, they might know each other. Similarly, if they don't have anything that seems like it's in that vet clinic type of industry, they may have other businesses within the geographic area of that vet clinic. So they could, pull a quote from that other business that's geographically relevant. Like, hey, just so you know, these 3 other businesses within this city or county or whatever have also used our services. So I'm going to go to this link and show you some examples of some of our testimonies. Okay. So far, technology is going okay. So here on our website, we have employer testimonials. And I just want to show you some examples just so you get a sense of what they can look like. It's really easy for a business to tend to want to write about their employee, which is fine, but what you're really selling are your services, your recruiting and training services. Because if the quote is all about how great Johnny is to have on the team and how amazing his smile is, well, what if you're then trying to get, Barbara a job and she's not one of those smiley, sweet people and it's a different, so you just don't want to stereotype people too much. And so we try to really talk about what it was for their business. And then I just tend to bold different things because you never know what's going to connect for a business, right? They might really be thinking about bottom line. They might be thinking about customer service. They might be thinking that, hey, they work with a lot of different vendors from, their delivery, who delivers their supplies to their custodial contract, and what really matters for them is good communication. So we have just on our website tons of different testimonials, and you can pick whether it's from the type of business you want, like a law office, or if it's something, like I said, geographically, oh, here I have a quote from Bremerton, so I can use that because I'm developing in another Bremerton business. And you never know which one might resonate. And so, yeah, talking about coaching, talking about valued employee, very responsive to our needs, that shows customer service. Anyway, so these quotes are loaded here on our website. A way that we use them with our social media is this randomly, every once in a while, I'll post one on our Facebook page as a way to get some attention and then link to that business to get some attention for the business. Okay, so I guess that gives you guys the idea there. Oops, I'm going back to the PowerPoint. Okay, is it loading up there for you guys? Okay. So the way to get some of these testimonials is most of those testimonials, those statements were generated from staff. So I don't know, all the organizations are a little bit different, and you might be thinking, oh, I'll get my communications or marketing person to get that quote, and they could be helpful, but your staff are the ones that know the good connections with the employers. You're not going to get a good one from every employer because, as we know, we do have some employers that are not that amazing, or they may say something that's not that positive about our services. It might be, you know, oh, how it's so sweet. I love helping this guy work, which isn't really that powerful for a business, right? But staff know the good relationships with those businesses. And so one thing that we did is when we were trying to collect all these, remember we went from having like 4 to knowing, you know, hey, we've been around for 30 years. We need more than 4 testimonies. So we had each staff set a goal of getting 1 statement, you know, over the course of 3 months or something. Also, another way we get these is we use quotes from our employer surveys, and we do our employer surveys quarterly through the mail, but you could use SurveyMonkey or something like that. And then really we've gotten better about saying to employers that we have good relationships. Hey, you know, we're trying to build, you know, our business, and we're trying to recruit new companies in your industry or your area. What would you say to another business about, you know, working with Trillium or hiring Joe through Trillium? And can I write that down? So just leverage your existing relationships with businesses. And the last point there about explaining that you're trying to develop business, you never know what can come out of that. I mean, sometimes someone doesn't think that you might need their help, and they think the only thing they can do is hire another person, and they can't hire another person. But hey, they're all networked and connected too, so you can use them as advocates and help. You know, they have distributors that send them, you know, supplies, or they have other peers and other businesses that they could be networking for you. So it's sort of a 2-point bonus there. I wanted to share a couple of the questions that we ask businesses just to give you some ideas. So one is, what was your original motivation for hiring through Trillium? Or what was your primary reason? And that's kind of good because then you get a sense of, you know, what drives businesses. And was it because they were approached by Trillium? Was it because they heard about it through a chamber event or a presentation? You know, what was their primary reason for hiring? Another question we like to ask when we're interviewing them or getting these statements is, what were your hesitations or concerns about hiring an employee through Trillium, and how did we address those concerns? That's a really good question. It might feel kind of unsafe, but it was really a way to start to understand why businesses say no. So when we ask, you know, what were your hesitations or concerns, and how do we address them, then we're learning from businesses, and that helps us in our marketing to other businesses. They might say, well, we couldn't imagine, I mean, safety is our number one priority here in this warehouse, and we just couldn't imagine how someone with a disability, you know, would affect that. We just thought, you know, we can't risk having a safety issue. And so it's like, okay, that's really important for us to know that when we're going into any sort of warehouse type industry, we need to be thinking that a primary concern for them is their safety record. And so we need to be prepared to address that. And how do we address that? Well, we do safety audits of a work site and making sure that an individual is going to get that job, we're aware of all the safety risks and we address them. Another question that we ask is, so now that Joe has been on your staff for a while, how does their work impact your production or customer service or workflow? So what that's getting at is, hey, now that you've had your employee, well, how does their contribution impact your business, your production or your customer service or your workflow? And what that helps to do is make sure that the business starts recognizing this person as a value add that's helping that business reach its goals, right? So it's not just, oh, they're really sweet and they smile all the time, or it's really fun to have someone different on our team. It's no, they're the ones that make sure that the mail is getting processed first thing in the morning, and now we don't have delays in invoicing, or we don't have delays in getting to customer concerns that come through the mail, and we have someone dedicated to that so that we know it's getting done. So that's a very specific way that they're saying what the benefit and the value add to their team is. And whatever the answers are to these, don't forget, you guys, you can just cut and paste what you like. So I'm not saying that you change the answers. I'm just saying you can, you know, just take the good parts. So we used to do, when we would ask questions or send out employer survey, we used to have like a checkbox of what we thought were our most valuable services. And it just didn't seem like it was working. You know, we would say, oh, we were helpful in recruiting, or we were helpful in identifying tasks that could be done by this person, or we were helpful in job coaching, all these different things. And really, businesses varied in how they answered, and sometimes they would say not applicable, and we're like, God, well, what are we doing for this business then? So we stopped asking this sort of checkbox, you know, fill in one of these, and we started asking, what supports has Trillium provided to you that are most valuable? So this way, this lets a business identify what supports are most valuable. It could be that we did something for that business that we never even really realized was important. And by having that named and written down, then we can now market that to other businesses. It's always good to ask about communication. So another question we ask is, did we communicate effectively about our role in helping you hire and train your new employee? And that's an area for us to always be learning about, right? I mean, how many times have we gotten an employer relationship where the minute we start talking about fading, they act like, you know, we're speaking a foreign language because they thought we were always going to be there at the side and probably also doing work. So making sure that we're communicating clearly. And it's also a chance for them to talk about our communication in terms of our responsiveness to concerns they have. And then the question that you should always ask is, you know, what can we do to improve or do differently? And that's always a place to learn in terms of your messaging. And then the last one is, would you recommend our services to another business? And if they say yes, then you better call them and find out who they would recommend, right? So anyway, those are opportunities to get content for your testimonies, you know, and cut and paste, and use those everywhere. You can use the same quotes a lot and in a lot of different ways. Like I said, you can put them in your print, like brochures. You can use them for individual emails when staff are following up with companies. But you just have to at least get a handful of them and make sure that they're in different businesses. So you don't want all restaurants or all daycares or whatever. Try to get some variety there. And they're easy to get, and it's a way to start leveraging your current employers as advocates. Okay, so visuals. one way I like to think about this is, have you ever been describing your job or the job of an employment consultant like at a picnic or something with a relative or a friend, and they just cannot imagine this job, right? They're just kind of staring at you thinking, I don't understand. So one minute you're in the back of a burger joint showing someone how to, chop lettuce, and then you're getting in your car and you're changing your outfit, and then you're going to go meet with the manager of a bank. I don't understand. So imagine that, your experience when someone, a friend or a family member can't understand your job. And then think about when you're talking to a business about how this is going to work for them. And a lot of times what happens is we need a visual in our head for anything in our life. We like to visualize things. And so we have to think about what the visuals can do for a business. And what we've learned over time is visuals can help us overcome the barriers that businesses might have when we first start pitching them with this idea of supported employment. So first of all, sometimes they can't even imagine what you're talking about happening in their office or clinic or shop. They really can't visualize it. It could be because, well, we've only always hired full-time people, and everyone's a certified welder, or everyone's a registered nurse. I don't understand how we'd have an assistant here. The other piece is that in order to have visuals, sometimes we'll just draw from our own life experience to populate an image. So it could be, I live in a very urban area, and there are lots of people who are like on the corners of freeways who have a physical disability, and they're homeless, and so they don't look very presentable, and they have mobility issues. And if that's the person that this manager that you're talking to is the only person with a disability they can imagine, now that's what they're thinking. You want me to hire that guy that I see every morning begging for money, who has to like hobble along on a stick? Literally that's what will happen, and you don't want them to go there, right? So then they're going to say, no way, I can't. That doesn't make sense. That won't ever work in in my shop. It's a customer service place. So it's our role to give them visuals. So I'm going to show you a couple visuals here, and there are just two different ways to do it. So I'm going to pull up a couple links here.
She is. It's really great. She doesn't sound very old.
Okay. So this one is, this is one video. And this is really easy. This is a minute and 53 seconds. I recommend any visuals that you make are short, like 2 minutes, because in the modern era, we don't have an attention span for anything. And I know you guys know that because you guys also surf the net. And if something doesn't grab you right away, you don't read it, and you glance through headlines. This is how we all are. And so something has to grab us in the beginning. But this video literally was made on iPhones by some of our staff. So it's not too fancy. But what it does is in a really quick moment, it gives a visual of the business owner's perspective on why they do support employment, and it's for business reasons. And it gives a visual of what the employee looks like. So I'm going to play this for you. Is there sound? But oh shoot, I don't know if there's sound because my computer's off.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it'll register through your phone, Karen.
Okay, so let me figure this out here. Hold on, you guys, while I try to figure out. Jess, how do I turn, or Ashley, how do I turn the sound back on through my computer, and then I'll mute my phone?
Up at the top of your screen, a little microphone icon. Hit the drop-down arrow, and you should get an unmute my speakers. Top of the, well, I forgot, you're in a different mode.
Oh, yeah, I'm in a different mode, so.
So you might have to get out of that.
Okay. All right, hang tight, you guys. I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
So top of the page in the dark gray. next to audio. Should be a little microphone icon there. Or it looks like a speaker, I guess. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Okay. I think we're going to make this happen. Let's see. Let's start at the beginning. There's sound. I'm going to mute my phone, you guys. Okay. So hang on.
And coaching, but they have pods of people. I think you guys would be considered a pod.
You're right. It is. Yeah. We're not picking it up.
Are we?
They might have.
Well, we must be doing this homework because we get iPads. So. Okay. Next year we're going to be asking for Kim. Down by your river. As for what? Come up down to the river. I just put my shoes down there. No tent for me. I got a blow-up bed that's on a frame.
Okay. So sorry. Are you guys there?
Perfect.
Okay. So sorry, you guys. I guess you couldn't see the video, which makes me wonder now they're not going to be able to see or hear. I mean, you could see it. You couldn't hear it. The next one. So, okay, let me just do this. I'll describe the two videos, and then we'll send out the links. And the key things of the first video. So the first video was a testimonial from, like I said, it was a business. So it's the owner of a coffee shop, and she's talking about how she hired and why she hired and how it benefits her business. At the same time, it has footage of the employee working. So someone who can't visualize what this would look like all of a sudden now has a visual. And it's 2 minutes. It's super short. And it's, I mean, I really think on your team you could probably get someone to do this video, because if you have millennials on your team, they make videos all the time. So can you provide the link and we'll go there on our own? Oh, yeah. Do you want me to try to send it out here in this? Oh, let me try to send it out in the chat box and see if that works. Thanks for that idea. Let's see.
Victoria.
Okay, I'm going to send it out in the chat box. Oh, I wonder if I click on it there. Does that seem dangerous, or should I just let you guys do it?
You could give it a whirl, Karen. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Okay, worst thing that happens is, I don't know what I get back. Oh, it's working for me. So Teresa's on it, but she's probably watching on her own.
On their desktop, which is probably just as safe to do. That way we don't lose the whole platform or something.
Okay.
Or just disconnect folks unintentionally.
Right. Okay. So I don't know if other people are doing that or not, but there's that link. So just understanding that you can really just make a quick, easy video that's not too involved and is actually quite manageable. The other one that I want to talk about is using video resumes. And we talked about this a little bit at RTR when we were there. So this is a helpful way for a business to see a candidate that maybe you've gotten far enough along in the conversation with the business that you actually have someone in mind who you think would be a good fit. And now you're showing them images of this person working. Maybe it was, a volunteer job or assessment sites or something like that. But again, you're giving them a visual. So it's our job to show them what it could look like and what it does look like in other workplaces so that they can begin to imagine it in their workplace. Without these visuals, they don't know. You don't know where their mind is going, and likely it's going to either shut down because they don't have a visual for it, or it's going to go to a place that you have to then recover from because it went down a bad path. You know what I'm saying? So it's really important to make sure that we're giving them a visual. So sorry, you guys, I don't have that. Let me, while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to get the link for the video resume. Actually, you know what? Since it's someone's individual video resume, I don't feel that comfortable sending that out permanently, if that's okay.
If you want, Karen, I don't know if there's a way we could do this, but I could unmute, like maybe I could play the video on my screen for sound.
Oh.
You want to?
I mean, I guess it depends if people need to see a video resume.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, how about if...
Are you talking about sharing your screen, Amy?
No, just the sound.
Yeah, I'm not sure because you guys are connected in the same way. So
yeah.
Okay.
So how about this? If people have never seen a video resume, and if you didn't get to see the one that we had at camp, that's what I keep calling it, but when we were together before, then I'm happy to follow up with people. I just am a little bit, just as it's an individual's video resume, and so I worry about just posting it out there, permanently, if that's okay. Sure. But yeah, feel free to follow up with me, and we can chat video resumes. They're super helpful, especially for candidates who don't speak verbally, don't communicate verbally. So all that being said, your visuals don't have to be video, right? So I'm sure half of you are like, oh God, we're never going to get there, or this seems like a nightmare, or I hate technology, this intimidates me. So just as a reminder, not every visual has to be video. So some of the things that we do are list current employers, and we could do that again in a targeted geographic area, or we can do it in a related industry, right? And so those are different ways for you to present visuals, because you can have either lists of businesses or you can have their logos, and you can make them customized sheets or, that have them either related to a business that you're approaching. Like if you're approaching a law firm, maybe you have other clerical type businesses that have hired. Maybe you have an insurance company. Maybe you have a medical admin office that's hired. Anyway, you're getting related information, businesses onto one page to create a visual. Another thing that we do is lists of tasks that a supporting employee is doing. Again, this is a way to give them an idea. I have something on my desktop, so if you can move me over, I'll share my desktop to show this list. Okay, so this is a list we have, and I'm happy to share because really it's not unique to us necessarily, but we do this example tasks by industry. And this is a way to, if you're talking to a manufacturing or distribution warehouse, you can talk about different jobs. And these are jobs that support employees currently do. But it's a way for them to start thinking, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, we have, someone could totally help us with scanning and copying in our office. Or, yeah, we need someone to do shredding confidential documents, or wow, it'd be really awesome to have someone dedicated to preparing the conference rooms for our trainings or our meeting. So this is different tasks by industry, child care, education, restaurant, animal care, custodial. So it just gives them really specific tasks that are getting done, and gives them a visual that they can go to, if that makes sense. So we'll head back here. Okay, so that was the middle of list of tasks. Another thing is newspaper articles. So we have a couple articles that we've gotten over the last few years from, we'll get an article like in a business journal or a local paper, and that's really helpful because then you're getting your story about your company told by someone else. And it's powerful because you'll be surprised, but business owners are the ones that read the local paper. You may not read it anymore, but they do read it. So I can tell you it's really easy to get your story in a local paper because they're always looking for positive stories. So you can just contact the editor and literally say, hey, you know, we're in town. This is what we do. We work with businesses and we work with individuals with disabilities. And I'd love to just get a story out there about, you know, a recent new hire or a gentleman who just celebrated his 5-year anniversary at a company. And then you're getting to frame the story so you can make it very business-centric. Now, the reporter is naturally going to go towards the story of, you know, John, who's been employed for 5 years and how amazing that is. But you also want to give that reporter an opportunity to be able to talk to the business owner and get that business owner in that article to talk about why they hire. Again, you can use those questions we used before, but you're getting them to talk about how it benefits their business. So now what you have is, okay, wait, hang on, I'm reading the email from Angie. We have conflicting feelings about articles. Does it shine a light on the individual's disability? Wouldn't it single out the employee? Okay, good point, Angie. So yeah, that's why I was saying a lot of what we do is we try to position it as how a business has benefited from our services, right? And so you can actually not even really have the person with a disability in there. And that's what I was saying. The reporter will tend towards that individual, but you are there to direct them to talk to the business owner. And you can even set up the time for them to go to the business when the employee is not working. And then you're getting the business owner to talk about it in really positive and universal terms, which are, it strengthens our team to have diversity. This person filled a niche labor gap that we had, and you know, ever since then we have better customer service, or ever since then now we don't have this workflow stop. And thanks to whatever your agency's name is, I'll just fill in Trillium. You know, we were able to source this talent that we couldn't have done on our own. So Angie, hope that Angie's saying now, would it just be general information about your business? That sounds great. Yes, yeah. Think of it as a way to, remember, you're trying to give a visual for another business. So when you're getting that newspaper article out there, you don't want it to be, oh, isn't this sweet that someone with a disability got a job? Because it's like, no, that's not what we're trying to say. We all know that people with disabilities can work. What we're trying to say is, how does this change a business? Why is this a resource that businesses should tap into to use our agency? Does that make sense? So it's switching it, again, going from where we were in the beginning of how do we position ourselves as a business resource? Well, we get other businesses to talk about it. And then in an article, now you're potentially hitting lots of businesses who never have heard of your agency, or they thought of it as a charity thing, or they couldn't think of it benefiting them. But then they see, you know, their buddy from Rotary, or, you know, the guy that they've, you know, done business with for a long time used your services. Now that they're more interested in talking to you about how that might benefit their business. So absolutely. Then the last piece on this is a portfolio with pictures of people working. So this is good old-fashioned, you know, pictures that you've loaded either, you know, into a Word document or printed them out and glued them onto a piece of paper, and you put them in a portfolio of some sort. And it's not about the person. Again, you're showing people working in various businesses, doing various tasks. And you can put through this portfolio when you're talking to prospective business. If you have a couple copies around, maybe you're using logos of companies or maybe you're just showing the tasks. But again, it gives your staff a tool when they're out there talking to a business to be able to show them, here's, a couple of people working in the medical industry. Here's a couple of people working in the retail industry. And you're getting actual pictures of them doing tasks. And so it provides a visual that's more than, that's easier to do and not as intimidating as a video might feel right now. Okay. Thanks for the questions and comments, you guys. This is really helpful. So every time I flip back and forth, I need a different arrow. Here we go. All right, so the next piece, we talked a little bit about this when we were together, but how collaboration and teaming helps for job development. We've definitely seen a lot of benefits for this, and we talked about creating strong teams for lots of reasons, and I can guarantee you that you'll have outcome improvements for your job placements. So one of the things that collaborating and teaming does is it promotes staff using each other's strengths. So in my job development skills, I am comfortable talking to lots of different business people, different business owners, but and I can get that tour, I can get a good conversation, I can get them to think about what supported employment would be like at their business, but I can't close the deal. I'm not a closer, right? I wasn't born salesperson, and so this is my hardest part so far. For other people, the hardest part is making that initial call. So I tend to do best when I team up with someone from our staff that is really good at closing. And when I say closing, that means that they can move us from that tour and the business saying, yeah, we'd like to do this, to, yeah, let's set up interviews next Thursday. We'll bring you 3 candidates that we think match based on the tour and what you've said you want for culture fit. Whereas somehow I just kind of get stuck and I don't move there. So for me, I need to pair with someone who can help me close the deal and get that job placement. And someone else might call me in to help them with that initial call because they don't know what to say to someone, or they're nervous because they've never worked in an office and they don't know how to talk to somebody about an admin job. So it really helps us use each other's strengths and life experiences when we collaborate for job development. Similar along what I just said is, we all come from different jobs in our own past. It's like, I was so unsuccessful working in restaurants. That was the one job I actually quit, was after like my 3rd day working in this Indian restaurant, being stuffed into a sari and having to bend over and serve meals because they eat floor height. I just was like, you know what, I am not cut out for this. And I was so stressed out and felt like I was a miserable server, which was the worst experience. So I had to quit. And so I have 3 days worth of knowledge about the restaurant industry. But I have a lot of coworkers who, that's how they went through college, or that's how they worked their way to this job. And so they have lots of information. They know, FOB and back of the house and all of this, and they know point of sale systems, and they know, what matters most to a server to feel good, and they know what matters most to a manager. Well, that's all really helpful information. So if I'm developing a job at a restaurant for one of my clients, I need to go tap into Erin's experience because she worked in the restaurants for 7 years, So when you collaborate and you leverage each other's background and history, then you're a little bit better off. You get lingo, or you get, ideas. Similarly, if a coworker has developed in a hair salon, well, now go talk to them about how they did it. What was the language? What were job tasks that, you and I as customers wouldn't know happen in a hair salon? Okay, so I think we talked about this a bit, but in order to support collaboration and teaming, we actually do a team bonus for job placements. So lots of questions about this. A lot of agencies tend to give bonuses for individuals and their performance in job placements. And while that is great, we are trying to support a collaborative environment, and so we give the bonus for the entire team regardless of whether you develop the same number of jobs. So the way we do it is in a very simple way. Every 6 months, we look at all the job placements and we add those up. And in the same time period, that 6 months, if there were any job losses that happened before the job was 1 year old, so before the 1 year anniversary, then that's a minus. And then you get, at the end, you get a total of job placements minus job losses. And that turns into a formula for how we give the job placement bonus, and that goes to the entire team. Everyone on that team gets the same bonus, whether they developed 5 jobs or 2 jobs. And so you ask, wait, how is that fair? Well, the assumption is that it takes all of us to do well, and I might get 2 job starts at the same time, and I can't coach both of those. And so we will have to rely on each other. Someone else is going to be doing my job coaching, and if they don't do a good job coaching, then it's not a successful job, right? And so really it's about collaboration, and you pay for good job coaches the same way you pay for good job developers. So there might be lots of questions about that, but we structure it that way, and it reinforces collaboration and teaming. And I know you might think that we have tons of people that say, hey, how come Judy gets the same as me because I developed 5 more jobs than her? And it just doesn't happen. I think people respect each other's strengths and contributions, and it lets us reinforce the collaboration and teaming rather than what happens when it's just when you're just paying for individual job placements. What tends to happen is people will hide jobs or not share them with their team. So if they don't have a candidate to fill a certain job, they may not be as inclined to share it with the broader team. And so what we're getting out of this is, a staff member, if they have, a job that they don't have a client to fill, they're going to take it to the whole team and say, hey, could anyone fill this custodial job? I don't have a good candidate for it. And we'll have a better match for the business, and even if it's not on that person's caseload. So it's pretty positive. So happy to talk offline about team bonuses more if you want. Okay, so another thing for collaboration and teaming is reinforce those staff on your team that are really good at job development. And one way is recently one of our teams, they started doing an Amazing Race. So you guys know Amazing Race, a TV reality show. So they created a fun project around that to get some energy around job development, but also an opportunity to learn. So what they did is we paired strong developers with staff that weren't as strong in job development, and they had, what they did is they set out over 3 months to approach, we made the industries that had to be in either warehouse, office, or the care industry, so it could be dog care, health care, whatever. But anyway, those 3 industries, and it was the first team to get a job in one of those industries. But the outcome is obviously someone's going to get a job, and there was I think a $50 gift card for that. But the real benefit of it was that you're pairing, people that could be mentoring and teaching others. So throughout that activity of this amazing race to get this job, really what's happening is co-learning, and someone who's not as strong is learning new tools and techniques to strengthen their own job development. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting that confidence, right? So you're pairing people. And that was just a fun project that staff came up with and led that. Another opportunity is to have staff do a training. So a lot of times there might be a job development tool like using a business proposal or, setting, how to do really good follow-up with a business. And so a staff will lead that training. So somehow you've identified a staff maybe because they consistently get good jobs, or they get jobs in a range of industries, so you know that they're comfortable talking to different people. So maybe they'll talk about how they research companies before they even go and talk to them, and giving staff some tools for how to get comfortable with language, or, hey, 3 things to do before you walk into that meeting, like see if they've had any articles in the newspaper, or have they won any awards, things like that. But you're having a staff rather than a manager do that training. So you're reinforcing that staff have these really good skills and expertise, and you're letting them teach those great skills to other staff. So then you'll have better capacity on your team. And then, of course, it's always important to share best practices and success stories. And yes, I'm talking about cat stories, so we'll get into that a little bit more later if you're not familiar with it. But it's always really important to make time at team meetings to talk about job development. And I think I shared before, but some of our teams, and our teams are usually like 10 consultants, one manager, but they have weekly team meetings, and some of them divide their team meeting in half, and half of it is just about job development, and some of them do every other week is a job development team meeting. So that meeting is exclusively for job development. However you do it, it's just really important that you make space for sharing like best practices. How did someone get a job? What were the tools and strategies they used? And then celebrating that success. I just logged out. Okay. The last piece I wanted to share about collaboration and teaming is really what you're trying to do is build a shift in the mindset that staff, while they do have a caseload, they're really thinking about all the job seekers that your agency has. So they're really thinking about a talent pool rather than the 6 or 10 people on their caseload that are unemployed, because maybe those 6 or 10 people don't fit a particular job they find. But if they are thinking like a real staffing company, that there's a whole pool of candidates out there, and I need to start thinking about all of Trillium's job seekers when I find a job, then you're going to make better job matches, which means better service to a business and more likelihood that they'll hire through you again or refer you. So that's really hard to do because we're social workers, and the way that our time is allocated and billed for, it's very much based on our caseload. But if you can have them shift that thinking at least for the job development piece, it's helpful. One thing a fun thing that our staff have been doing a lot lately to get to know other job seekers that might not be on their caseload is these things called, they'll do like a networking, or they call it a mixer. So it's a networking event for job seekers. And one way that they set it up is it could be that they do like a mock interview. So the job seekers are cycling through different staff doing a mock interview. So they're practicing their interviewing skills, or using their portfolio or video resume. So it's beneficial to the job seekers, but also it's great because then the staff get to know them more than if you just were to read their resume at a staff meeting, which never really resonates with people. So the mixers can be like that, or more recently I heard the staff doing like a speed dating style, if you guys are familiar with that. And it was kind of the same thing of doing the mock interviews, but it was, round robin, kind of quick. And then they had like a networking event where, just like as if you and I went to a chamber, these job seekers are learning to have an impromptu conversation or use their communication tools with strangers, because that's what's going to happen when they're, interviewing or meeting new coworkers. So it's just kind of a fun way for staff to be able to get to know other clients, and then for us to be able to boost the skills of the job seekers who are looking for work. Okay, so another big piece is a customer relations management tool. So I'm going to keep talking, but I want to do a little bit of a poll to find out what you guys are using now to track your business contacts. So you're going to see here, I think hopefully on the left side of your screen, and you can just type your answer, and I'm going to share the results. But what I want to find out is what agencies are using right now to track the contacts you have with prospective businesses. So these aren't current employers. These are how, when your staff are out there approaching new businesses or going to networking events, how are you tracking those contacts and those relationships? So as you're typing those in, I'll just explain a little bit about how this is a huge game changer for us. So it used to be that we were a small enough team, and maybe some of you feel this way now if you have a small job development team, that we would just sit around the table once a week and talk about where we were going. And, I knew where John was going, and Amy knew where I was going, and we just stayed out of each other's ways. And but it was all in our heads, right? And so the minute you have staff turnover, or the minute you can't remember, did he say he went to this pizza place or that pizza place, then you're losing some potential work. And one of the big things that happens is either you're duplicating, so two of your staff are going into the same business, and that's a problem, or staff might have a really great relationship with a business, and then they leave, and so now you've lost that contact if you don't have it documented somewhere. So those are some really important reasons why you want to have some sort of trackable system. Now, moving on to what I was talking about earlier with giving managers a way to manage job development, is if you have some sort of tracking system, it's a helpful way for both you and the staff to track your activities and your progress for follow-up. So, you know, it used to be like people just like would, you know, put on their timesheets 3 hours job developing. Well, what did you do for 3 hours? And was that good work? Was it useful? You know, what are your strategies? Was it phone calls? Were you like just searching Craigslist or whatever your local job search online is? Or were you, you know, was it a tour and then you actually had done some research on a couple companies, so now you went to go do an in-person visit? So having some kind of tracking system lets staff track their contacts, right? So I have a contact with business ABC, and I talked to the manager, and he said to call back on Tuesday. So now I'm going to remember what my job is I need to follow up on Tuesday, and I could put a reminder in my calendar or whatever. And then my manager knows what I'm doing and what progress I'm making. And so it's a way for people to both be accountable for their own actions and follow up and have their little reminders of what they need to do next when they talk to a business, and also for a manager to be able to manage the progress they're making and what they're doing. So I'm looking at some of the list here, and hopefully you can see it too. Electronic documents, I'm wondering if that's like Excel. Spreadsheet, yep, okay, and team meetings, so you discuss it at team meetings. Exceptional Persons, Inc. uses Razor's Edge. Okay, that's a sales software for sales, CRM, customer relations management tool. That's great. Spreadsheets and job coaching meeting once a week. Excellent. Spreadsheets. Verbal updates at JD weekly meetings. Implementing a job pod. Oh, that's cool. With info per developer and employer connections. Info and current opportunities. Great. Okay, so there seems to be a lot of use of spreadsheets, and that's great. Some agencies that are bigger, you can get into, I think we can go back to the main page now. Some of you that are bigger and are have more teams and more staff, and it's not enough to have a spreadsheet, you might do something more advanced like use Salesforce or other software. Razor's Edge was one of those answers. So those are all really important tools so that you can manage your results. Another way, so we went over some of these things, how to use these for job development, but the last piece is it's a really cool way to do reporting too. So even with your Excel spreadsheets, what you can do is look at, you know, hey, how many new businesses is your star job developer adding to that list every week? And maybe that's your benchmark. Or how many hours is that job developer spending on job development per week, and is that your benchmark? So now if you get a new employee or you have a staff that's not getting as many jobs, you can say, hey, well, it looks like you should be spending 8 to 9 hours a week job developing. Or it looks like you should probably be having a goal of adding, you know, 12 new businesses, which are leads, right? 12 new leads every month. So new contacts, because you have to have more business coming in all the time, even if you're working on some relationships. So I think some of those tools are helpful for managers as well as for staff in terms of coming up with a goal. Like, okay, well, hey, I know that I'm putting in this much time, so I'm doing the best I can. Or, you know, maybe I'm going to go pair up with somebody else for a little bit and see how they're doing it. So there are ways that you can use the CRMs also for research, like how long does it take from first meeting to a job placement, or what strategies are most successful. So those are some things to think about in terms of your CRM. And I love that a lot of you guys are both having this spreadsheet, but you're also talking about it at meetings. And I think that is really important because it reinforces that staff use it and enter the information. and that there's some sort of look back, right? So there's looking back at, you're not just putting in businesses, but hey, Karen, you entered these, 10 businesses in January, and it's July now. Are you still in touch with them? Are you following up? What are you doing now? That kind of thing. So to have some capacity in there to track the follow-up activities. It's also really important because, as you know, if you've done job development or you've watched your staff do it, it can take months to move something forward, and it can take a year or two to get a good job sometimes. And so if people see that that's sort of how it goes, then they'll be more confident in following up, and being disciplined and being consistent and assertive with that follow-up, because they know it's going to end up with a job. If people don't know that after like the 5th phone call, they might quit, right? They might just say, well, the lady never calls me back, or it's the second manager since I started developing, so I'm not going to keep pursuing this. Well, if they knew that most other job developers go through that with each job placement, then they'll stick to it. All right, so you know that I'm big on sharing and celebrating. So the sharing, that kind of fits in with what I was just saying, that even if you have a database or a spreadsheet, even the fancy database, you still have to talk about it. And those of you who heard me at camp, you know that we send out a cat story that goes with each cat picture for each job placement. And if you don't know and you think I'm crazy, well, you can still think I'm crazy, but it works pretty well for us. So at Trillium, if you get a job, we send out a fun cat picture, which is fun to Google, and it's related to that job. So if you get a job at a hair salon, maybe it's like a cat in rollers or something goofy like that. And then along with that picture comes the cat story, which is how the staff explains how that particular job was developed. And in that, you're sharing, the tools you use, the strategies, how long it took, how many times you had to call them, or who you met with. And it's really good because it gives other staff ideas. They could replicate that with another hair salon, or it might give them a fresh tool. They didn't think about doing a job proposal, so now they can do that. Or it just might give them inspiration, which is maybe what they need because they've been getting a bunch of no's lately in their job development. So keep sharing your stories of how staff get jobs and what went into it. And then, you got to celebrate because, hey, it's hard work getting a job, and every job is super exciting, and you want to keep that reinforcement. So maybe it's smart Nellies at a team meeting, cat pictures or something goofy to go with it. I know some of you talked about how you have I can't remember, it was like cows or, the graduation icons, like every student that graduates with a job. You might have some goofy little thing that you do at your team meeting as a ceremonial way to celebrate. But keep doing that and share the story. So those are always fun, and they sound so bizarre from the outside, right? But they're really powerful. I'm going to share one of the cat stories just to give you an idea of how they can be used. So they can be this long or they might be shorter, but I highlighted these certain sections just so it's clear what goes into it. And staff write them differently, but here it is. So this job, it took 3 years. Okay, so that's a good context. The staff originally pursued this little coffee shop when it was first opening, and then it since added like a cafe bar to it. But so she stuck with it for 3 years, including buying coffees and hoping that she spent enough time there she'd meet the owner, Rob. And then later on it says that Tara and I sat down with Tori, who was the hiring manager. So that shows the collaboration, right? It took 2 of them. And then after they understood some of what the business wants, they put together a job proposal. And if you're not familiar, it's a really good tool, just a one-page summary of what you think the job duties would be, scheduling, pay even might be included in there. And that's, business to business, they look at estimates and proposals all the time. So it's a one-page document that's based on what you've done in a job analysis or environmental analysis, and meeting with the business on what they think, maybe it's during the busy times we propose a schedule, things like that. So after sitting down, they put together this job proposal, and then they did working interviews. And working interviews, as you know, are really good service that we can sell to a business who may not know how to hire someone who can't answer traditional interview questions or who wouldn't be successful in a traditional interview. So as a resource to the business, we can say, hey, you know, you want to hire, and our recommendation is that you use a working interview to interview these two candidates and decide which one seems best for you. So we can set that up. So that is what worked for this, this job placement. So right here, if I'm reading this as a coworker, I've now gotten, you know, these really good nuggets to help me. I know that it might take a long time. I know that I have to use tools like job proposals and contacting not just the hiring manager, but the owner too. I know that I might be able to use working interview as a tool too. So it's a great way that every time you get a job, you're taking what worked and you're sharing it with the rest of the team. I'll share a couple other recent ones that were helpful. So in a recent CAT story, Maggie, our staff, was talking about how she went and talked to the parents and sat down with them, and her job actually came out of a meeting with the family and using their network. Well, I feel like that's underutilized network that as social service providers, we feel like we have to do it on our own. But if you're in sales, you know that you use everyone's network. So, you know, Maggie, our staff, was good, and she leveraged the students' network, and that led to a successful job placement. So I'm going to remember that next time I'm job developing, that I need to talk to the family and the brother and the cousins and get some ideas for job development leads that way. So that was helpful. Ryan, he was developing a job with a dentist's office, and similarly to creating a visual, he created a little video that took footage of two other dentist offices that we support that have supported employees. And he took footage of the tasks that the employees do and what the managers say about how it impacts their dentist office and their team. So he created that video. Well, now all of us can use that video, whether we're developing in dentist office in that region or a different region. So that was a helpful tool, and I wouldn't have known that video existed if I didn't read his CAT story. Collaborating, so you read that in the last one, that two staff collaborated to close a deal, and I've already confessed that I'm terrible at closing, so I always have to collaborate to close a deal. Another coworker of ours, Jess, she had a job seeker who was going for an interview, and he has a lot of anxiety about being in different places. His autism is pretty strong, and so the idea of going to meet someone for an interview and going to a new place for the first time is just really tough for him. So what she did is she went and she took footage of the workplace. It happened to be a restaurant, so she took footage of the restaurant. She took some pictures of the person the guy was going to interview with, and she took pictures and she had a video showing where the restroom is, because for this guy, that's really important for him to kind of be oriented, where's the restroom, and if he doesn't know that, it can kind of tailspin into some weird behaviors if he doesn't know where that is first when he gets to a new place. You know, it can be kind of what he focuses on more than anything else. So she created this little tiny video. It was pretty rough. I mean, nothing fancy, right? It was just for her client to be able to use, but it helped him prepare for the interview, because so he just played this video on repeat while they drove to the interview. So he had half an hour of seeing what the workplace is going to be like, knowing where the bathroom is, seeing a picture of the person he was going to interview with, so that when he walked in the door for that interview, he was much more prepared, and then the employer was, you know, it was a more positive experience. Well, that's a great idea. I would have never thought up on my own, and so reading her CAT story, I got to hear how she made it more successful for the employer and for the employee to interview. Some of you, I don't know how many of your organizations are in multiple counties or multiple regions, but we have 4 teams that are in different geographic areas. Like, it could be 2 hours away, or it could be, 40 minutes away. But it's really cool that when you see these CAT stories, you're able to share ideas and use referrals. So especially for like chain businesses, there could be a Panera in one county, and if you read a CAT story and you see that one of your colleagues there developed a job, then you can, get advice from them.
Maybe Rhonda will have great ideas.
Ask if you can use, that manager's name as a referral. So it's good to be able to use those stories that way in terms of replicating jobs. Okay, so I want to do another poll, and the question is, what's going to be your next step? And really what I want to hear is both if you have a next step, but also this is a chance for me to hear from some of you, and it can just all get piled in there, on some cool things that you do related to the topics we've talked about. If it's using testimonials, if it's getting, what you do at team meetings to share stories or celebrate, what you do for your language and how you train staff in terms of sales, and then what you do for visual tools. So I want to hear from some of you, and this will be like the best we can do for a group discussion. I'm okay to, do the sound, but sometimes it gets complicated. So let's try to do it this way with a poll. So if you want to talk about a next step that you're going to do based on what the material we covered today, add that in there. And then if you want to share something cool that one of your staff did or you're doing now, then I want to hear some of this. Everyone's being shy. Hey, Sierra, I see you're on. I know you've done something cool recently. Why don't you share it?
And for those of you on the phone, the lines are open, so feel free to speak up if you'd rather do that.
Okay, so one came up that people are holding informational interviews with employers of interest. I don't know who wrote that, but if that's playing off the Carrie Griffin concept, we've been doing that too. If it's not that, then I want you to type more. So Carrie Griffin is a national trainer, and one of his big things is that we need to get off mainstream and get out of the main box stores and things like that. And so we say at Trillium that we're pretty good about getting jobs in retail, restaurants, places where you can walk into, but we're not as good about getting jobs in places that we don't know exist or don't know how to talk to them. And so this idea of an informational interview is pretty cool. Oh yeah, it was Candale. So it's pretty cool because it provides an opportunity for you to, really just let go of all the pressure of all the job seekers that are on your caseload and walk into a business and literally say, I'm just here to learn about your company, and I want to know about your industry, and I want to know why are you doing this. Like, ask them their personal story, and where do you get the supplies for your cabinets? Where does the feed for your horses come from? Whatever it is, but you're learning about their business and what matters. And it's really just it's a really powerful way to do job development, because you're genuinely going in there just to learn about the business. And we went and did this. We broke up into teams and we went and met with a cider distillery. They make cider. And literally, we never once mentioned Trillium in this entire hour and a half. We did a tour of their plant, and we talked to them. And it was really powerful, because now we know a lot about that industry and that business. And I guarantee you, any day I could call him and say, hey, remember we toured with you? We've got someone who thinks they want to be in, the culinary industry or the manufacturing industry, which is sort of where cider making kind of combines. Can we come do an assessment? And I'm sure he'd be cool with it. And then you're starting a relationship that may someday lead to a job. So someone just add, also specifically using the phrase, could you imagine this person working here? Because of that, we support a young lady working at a spa in a customized position, specifically tailored to her interests and business needs. So that's cool. That's Candeo again, I think. So I like that. That question is, could you imagine this person working here? So you must have given them a visual of some sort. Either they interviewed directly, or you showed a video resume or pictures of them. And that was a way for a company to, have a really specific opportunity to envision someone working on their team and being part of their company. Okay. So no one wants to brag about cool things they're doing, huh? How, for those of you who were in Iowa at camp, I don't realize you're all still in Iowa. Sorry, that sounds so silly. For those of you who are at camp, what have you done new with your teams? Oh, I'm new. Please, can you give me some ideas about the CRM? Okay. So CRM, the question just popped up. Can you give me some ideas about the CRM? So a customer relations management tool is basically a way for you to track your contacts with a business. So in one way or another, you have been on someone's list, right? Whether it's because you signed up for a account at your grocery store, your little bonus card, or you signed up for something at your gym, something like that, and they're keeping in touch with you. You're on their list as a customer, and if you didn't sign up right away when you gave them your contact information, they're going to follow up with you in 6 months. Well, that's because they're using a tool to track both their contacts with you and your information and maybe some demographics about you, and they're going to use that as a tool to follow up. So this is very common in any sort of sales communication, is to use a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. So how do we use that in job development? Oh, well, some teams, as you see, are using spreadsheets, and they literally probably have headings like name of business, contact person, contact info, first contact, like the date, and follow-up activity. They might have other information in their notes, like if they did a tour, like what they saw. What you're doing is you're collecting information about the different businesses that you have contact with and that you're following up with that will hopefully someday become your next employer. Without tracking that, it's sort of all lost out there, like which businesses have you already talked to or which have you not talked to. You have lots of staff that might be out there, or if you're doing it by yourself, there's no way you can remember who you're supposed to follow up with. And so this is a way to track, your commitments to a business. When you said you were going to call on Tuesday, they'll remember if you follow up. Even if they're not ready to hire, they'll remember that you're a good communicator. So that's a little bit about a CRM, and you can literally start with just a spreadsheet, and then as you get bigger, you might be able to invest in more of a software system to help with that. I definitely think that's like one of the best things when you're at any kind of training with other agencies, is ask them what kind of tracking tool they use for their CRM, because there's all kinds of ideas out there. We ended up building a customized tool because then staff can enter their case notes and their business contacts at the same time, but it's super expensive, and it'll have a shelf life, whereas there are some software systems that are already out there that your colleagues mentioned. Razor's Edge, and then Salesforce is another one too. So hopefully that answers both, why you have it, how to use it, and then also, different ways you can do it. Someone just posted that our CAT strategy is through a giant thermometer. The closer we get to the goal, the hotter it gets. I love it. Okay, so that's talking about, goal setting for your job development and sharing and celebrating those outcomes. So hopefully all of you have, since we got together at camp, hopefully all of you have some sort of visual tracker up on your wall where staff know how many jobs you're trying to get and where they are in that progress, right? And it could be, literally you get out a piece of 39-cent poster board and you draw it on there, or you have a whiteboard and you're just tracking numbers, but somewhere keep it visible that you share at your job development meeting so people feel like they're part of something bigger, and it creates a lot of energy. So I like the idea of a giant thermometer, and it's getting hotter. Nice work, Kendall.
Great. Well, Karen, it is 2:30, so we are at our time today. If anyone has any last-minute questions, please go ahead and submit them quickly. But just for those of you who do need to sign off, We will go ahead and send out the links that Karen shared, minus the visual resume. Remember, please contact her directly if you'd like that information. If you've never seen a visual resume. We'll also send out the task list and the recording of the presentation. So if you have any other items, please email myself or Jessica.